So I met an interesting gentleman, and his name was Chris Waddell, and I'd show you my picture, but that's not the interesting part. He's paralyzed. He got in a ski accident, and he has medaled 13 times in the Paralympics in both winter and summer. He's the most medaled Special Olympian in the world. And he also climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So for us tech geeks, imagine that, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro when you have no legs. So they rigged this four-wheel, really cool thing. He has a documentary that he created on it. So he literally cycles, uses his arms to pump himself up Mount Kilimanjaro. I think it's like 13,000 feet. And he was only assisted in 100 feet of that climb. I mean, it's just phenomenal when you think about the determination and his just sheer willpower. But he made a really interesting statement, and it made me stop and think, and this was actually just 2 days ago, so I wanted to just bring his quote out front because I think it makes us stop and think. He said, if you're not taught to stare, you're not taught to see people with differences. And I know that's just, it's such a weird quote, right? I put it on Facebook, of course. I thought, oh, wow, it just really made me think. And my friends are like, I hate that quote. Because, well, of course, you know, but the point is not to stare, right? But the point is to make you think about, are we really thinking about different ways of you know, living in this world? I'm going to move this because I'm not a lecture style person. Are we looking at different ways of seeing the world and seeing how things could be done? And so I've been thinking about that all week. And so when I talk about women in technology, I really want to just create a dialogue because I think my perceptions in having been in tech for 15 years are definitely colored by my perceptions and my experiences and things that have happened to me. And I think, you know, what I'd be interested in as we go along is also your thoughts and your perceptions. And I want you to feel comfortable, you know, contributing, saying what you think, just trying to help kind of solve what it is about technology that seems to be so exclusionary in many ways for women in technology. And when I say women, that also includes minorities, but that is kind of racial equity is not the same thing as gender equity. And so I want to really stay focused on gender equity. But the racial equity obviously is also an important issue, and there are organizations that do address racial equity as well in making sure we're tapping all of the resources and all of the talent that we have here in the United States. So with that, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. Let me see what my next slide does first. It's kind of, okay. So I was in a former life a patent attorney. I have an engineering degree and went to law school and then became a patent attorney. I worked for about 10 years and was a partner at the largest law firm here in Salt Lake City that does intellectual property. And I love technology, I love innovation. And after a few years, I realized that my clients sitting across the table telling me about their really cool ideas were having so much more fun than I was. And I was like, well, I have an opportunity to get out and do something different with my life. And so while I still continue to keep a toehold in patent law, because it's still very interesting to me, and I really love the intersection between business and patent strategy. So I am connected to a law firm here in Utah with some Silicon Valley roots. I decided to go out and really sit more on the business and product development side and really gain some additional skills and understanding perspective of really what makes a technology run. So I spent 3.5 years in an educational technology company. It was grown here in Utah called School Improvement Network, and it's actually been around for about 20 years, but technology, when they started introducing technology in their video platform, that's when their company just started to grow. They were able to do some amazing things to scale in education, and ed tech right now is really a very, very interesting to play with technology, especially in mobile apps. It's fascinating. So if any of you are looking at ed tech, that's a really, really interesting place to play right now. While I was at the law firm, I started an organization called Women Tech Council. So it was myself, a few other founders, other women in technology, who felt like there were a lot of really talented women in Utah in technology, not just technologists, but also, you know, all those different roles that it takes to make a technology successful. While we create products, it also takes amazing sales teams, and it takes CEOs with vision. It takes all of those pieces to make technology succeed. If we can't get it out there, if we can't sell it, then that's job security for us, right? So there's so many talented people, but when it comes to women in technology, we're kind of sprinkled everywhere, right? So we started this organization called Women Tech Council. And we found that when we got all that power in a room, there was kind of this amazing thing that happened. All the women said, oh, you too? Oh, there's other amazing women? And we started to connect people, and more importantly, we were able to connect people around opportunity. Because that's where I see is sometimes the deficit is just the opportunities that are available to women. So over the years, we have, some of you might recognize the gentleman on the right. He's obviously not a woman. But this was our last year's Women Tech Awards. Every year we have Women Tech Awards in September, and we highlight some amazing finalists. This year last year we introduced what we called the Impact Award. And some of you might recognize him as Josh James, who started, he started Omniture and took it from startup to IPO, and then Adobe acquired them, right? So the Adobe building was the former Omniture. So Josh has done some amazing things, and he also started another startup called Domo. And the thing that Josh has done throughout all of his company's growth is he's always had women at the table, women in executive roles, which is very, very unusual in technology companies in Utah. And so we wanted to make sure to acknowledge his leadership in providing opportunities for women. But in addition to the impact that he's had, we also make sure to recognize these amazing women every year who drive technology in really significant ways. So it's been a really fun organization. It's been around for over 7 years. And men are welcome. It's actually very interesting because our events get anywhere between 20 to 40% men coming. And what I love about that is it's not about women networking with women. What I've learned in my career is that it's everybody networking with everybody. And the more we can facilitate that dynamic, the more everybody wins. So I think Women Tech Council, for me, one of the biggest successes I've seen is that it norms this idea of women and men interacting together, and that it's healthy, it creates, I think, a great synergy, and it really helps to leverage all of the resources that we have here. So if you want to come out to one of our events, you're welcome to. I think we'd love to have you. So we all know that technology is a fantastic area, and I kind of want to set the stage for this, for some of these dynamics. We know that some of the fastest growing job opportunities are in technology. I mean, so many of you, how many by raise of hands have fallen into technology but didn't go and get a computer science degree? Okay, how many of you have computer science degrees? Okay, so there's about 60% and then about 30% that fall into it. Why did you go into a computer science degree? Yes. Okay, so you like making stuff. How did you connect technology and computer science with making stuff? Okay, so you had some amazing exposure early on that helped you connect. I can create some pretty cool things with tech, right? Yeah. Anyone else? Why did you go into computer science?
I wanted to be a video game programmer when I was a kid. Haven't still done that.
So video gaming was like a key driver for you, right? Yeah. And this is going to date me, but in middle school, they're tearing down my middle school now because it's so old. But I remember I did basic programming, and I remember those guys that would create Centipede and stuff like that. I'd be like, how'd they do that, right? It's really cool, and even back then I saw that vision of being able to really create really cool interactive stuff. Anyone else? How about people who fell into tech? How did you fall, just kind of happen to end up in tech? He didn't want to do accounting. Okay, that's awesome. Did you have your hand raised?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was similar to his, just loved making cool things and saw friends that were doing that and just kind of attached on to what they were doing for fun.
So you also got this exposure, but didn't you go the formal route, I guess, for lack of a better word, right? And the great thing about tech is there's so many pathways to get into tech. That's what is exciting for me. And when I, so what I do now is I really try to change some of the messaging around how do you get into tech, because I think some of the, and we'll talk about this, some of the perceptions of how you get in have changed and they become much more accessible, which is what's really exciting for me. But the circles around here obviously are, these are the best jobs in America. The circles are the ones that have technology as a really strong foundation. You'll notice one of the fastest growing ones. I don't know why the circle didn't end up over this blue one. Sorry about that. This circle is supposed to be over this blue guy here. That's one of the fastest growing jobs. And that's product management, right? So product management has, nobody, grows up and says, I want to be a product manager someday, right? But it's one of those amazing positions that puts you squarely in this interesting strategic and technical and outwardly facing role that it is so multifaceted that I think it provides so many opportunities for people. So product management is a fascinating career that when I talk to young people who seem to be a little bit more outward facing, I help them see that product management might be a really interesting way to utilize their technology abilities, and then also some business strategy as well. So we already know this, so I don't put this up for any particular reason except just to reemphasize that technology is a really amazing space to be in right now. But with that, we've had some interesting myths that have been created over the years, right? So I put the cowboy and hacker myth up because, when you think about a cowboy, what do you think of? When you think about a cowboy, like I just went and took my kids to go see the Lone Ranger the other day, right? I mean, that is your stereotypical cowboy. He's got his sidekick. He's out there just robbing, well, not robbing, but saving the world, beating up 10 other bad guys all by himself, right? But in real life, a cowboy lives on a ranch. They have tons of people that are helping. The women are working side by side with the men to help a ranch work. I mean, that's how real cowboys did it, right? But somewhere along with the storytelling that happened back in the olden days, the cowboy myth was created. And a similar thing sort of happened with technology, right? So we have our cowboy, and do you guys, I don't know, you young guys, but are any of you old enough to remember War Games, the movie War Games? Okay, Matthew Broderick. Yeah, I remember seeing that, right? And it's this maverick kid that goes and saves the world, and he is brilliant and is able to hack through the government security. I mean, right? It creates this image of just uber, just supermanism that it's a little bit inaccessible to some people when they think about being a programmer. What are some other stereotypes sometimes that you get when people say, "Oh, you're a programmer"? What do they say? You must be able to fix my computer. Okay.
Well, I think you kind of think of the Unix nerd who is in the basement with pizza and
Yeah, the pizza guy. Yeah, Band-Aid on the sunglasses, right. The guy that doesn't see sunlight for 4 days, right, because he's just in the zone, he's just coding, right? And that movie Facebook didn't help either, right? A bunch of teenage kids, they get together and they just, live in a frat house and they just code all day long. So, yes?
The stereotype I don't like is when people say, oh, you must be really smart to do that. I don't even get that. And I don't like it when they apply smart with looking at problems in a certain way.
Okay, so, and I'm just going to repeat this just so you guys know because the audio feed goes into the video, so I just want to make sure people are picking up on your comments. So he said, I don't like when people say you must be smart because smart does not necessarily correlate, at least in your experiences, with writing great code or creating great product. What language would you rather see? I mean, everybody likes to be called smart. Trust me, right? There's nothing wrong when I tell people, well, I have a chemical engineering degree. People, oh, you must be smart. Well, yeah, I worked pretty hard for that, right? So I think everybody really likes being seen as smart, but what is the challenge when we continue to repeat, you program, you must be smart. You program, you must be good at math. You program, you must be have terrible personal hygiene, right? So what's the problem with that? What inherently happens? Yeah. Okay, so she said it pushes you away. It kind of excludes you, puts you in this other category, right? Yes?
What's the bar for entry into those various, right? Oh, you're a chemical engineer, you must be smart. Saying, instead of, you can only do it if you're smart. Most people perceive themselves in a way that is probably not conducive to them thinking, I can do that.
So great insight. It sets this kind of psychological bar, right? Where people say, oh, well, if I want to do that, then I have to be here. And I would say in my experience, that most people don't, when there's a bar up here, they don't naturally just put themselves there unless they're really, really, really confident with themselves. Any other comments on kind of this stereotype? I mean, we know that they're myths, right? Another stereotype I don't like is the excessive attachment of computer science to the math and sciences. It's frustrating for me, and and I think it's driven by academians, and I get that. But the challenge is it doesn't really reflect a real life application of how most programmers really, really operate in the day-to-day world. And so, so I think there needs to be some messaging. Now, we know that the tech industry has undergone, if any of you follow TechCrunch or any of the things that have been going on, this is just an example of one of the hackathons where there was just, what was felt to be some, inappropriate material that was shown, and it would alienate certain genders or, make people uncomfortable. So you'll see these occasionally where there's some pretty egregious behavior that's kind of called out, and more people are calling out the egregious behavior just with the culture of hackathons. I don't want to focus so much on that because, frankly, I haven't seen that much. And you look at this Cocoa Slopes conference, I mean, there was nothing that I would find objectionable at all. I thought everyone was really friendly, really cool. And so this type of stuff I don't think is so much the problem. I want to focus more on what are some of the more subtle nuances that sometimes go unnoticed. And I think what the particular challenge with those type of things is that, in my experience, most people are just good people. And they're just trying to create cool product. They just want to grow a business, and they're really, really nice. And so the things that I've seen haven't so much been really egregious, like I'm going to put this in your face and, using really horrifying words that will really shock for the shock value or anything like that. It's just stuff that just, is really subtle, like this, right? So I grew up in, graduated from high school in '92, and I heard this a lot. And you will be shocked, but they're still using this term when they show the curriculum to parents and students in 2013. So I serve on a consortium of career and tech directors, and that's kind of where the software programming curriculum sits. And I was looking at this curriculum, they want industry feedback, and I said, why do you still say non-traditional for females? Why do you think I just get so when I see that?
So if I were like a female and I saw something wasn't traditionally for females, then that to me would kind of denote that I need to be sort of a non-traditional type of person or have non-traditional value standards and skills.
Exactly, right? It puts this unconscious signal in their brain. And most people, I actually have a very unusual personality. I'm fine being a maverick. I'm fine doing something different than everyone else. I did chemical engineering because it would make me stand out. I did law because it would make me stand out, right? But most people don't think that way. So when it's positioned as non, it's like positioned as an immediate negative thing, and I hate that. Any other thoughts on this? I begged, and I almost got on my knees to ask them, please remove this. Yeah. Yeah, so, and again, it's some of those unconscious things. I say, why do we still have this term? And they say, oh, I didn't even notice that was there, right? Which is kind of problem number one. Number two, the answer I got was that it was still there for historical reasons, because they want to keep track of women that are entering non-traditional career paths. And exactly, right? That's what I said. You can track that. Do the students really need to see it? Because I think in 2013, the girls and boys, they have no idea what non-traditional means, right? So it's a point that I have to continue to pound with education. Whenever I see this term, I'm very vocal about it because, to me, the conversation needs to go in a different direction. Yeah, did you have a comment?
Another word that kind of stands out to me is just tradition in general. I think there's a lot of trends in education that education's changed pretty rapidly, and so there's sort of this traditional way that education has taken place in the past, but we're starting to realize that maybe that's not how it should be. So the fact that the word traditional is there, sometimes we hang on to traditions that we maybe shouldn't hang on to.
That's a great point. And you see that the way that I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and the way they interact with girls is very different than the way I interacted with boys. And so they'll be on Minecraft, and they'll be on the phone with a girl, and they'll be just playing Minecraft with a girl, right? I'm like, very cool. So you're right. Kids don't adhere to tradition. Education maybe clings on to it a little bit too much, right? So who all votes that we get rid of this term? Raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, another thing that I think this might indicate is sort of the mindset of whoever's putting it in this life. It's really not relevant to the field at all, right? It doesn't, when people are trying to learn about, what career do I want? I want information about these different fields. It doesn't really matter what, the gender, the typical gender ratio is in the field. And so, whoever is putting this in this life, seems like almost subconsciously they're thinking, oh, it's important to know currently what the gender ratios are. That should determine kind of what, that should be a factor in what you decide to do.
So I said to them, and it would be interesting for you to know that, so non-traditional for females is a bullet point, but above that is 3 other bullet points. High paying, high demand, and I can't remember what the third one was. And I said to them, well, now what woman would not want that, right? Who doesn't want to be paid well? Who doesn't want to be in demand? And I said, are there other terms that you could put in its place? Great flexibility, amazing career opportunities for women. Is there some other way that you can use this as a marketing or a lever to try to entice more of our girls to go into computer science? Yes. Creative. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and we've heard today that, part of why you wanted to enter development is the ability to create. So let's look at perhaps how the message could change. So when I put this picture up, what are some thoughts that come to your mind? Google, okay, right. Google Glass is cool, okay. By the way, commentary, I tried on the Google Glass. So Women Tech Council held an event at Adobe. We had Google Glass, and it was like one of the first, prototypes. And so we all got to try on the Google Glass, and we had a developer up there from the Google group showing us how to, tap into their APIs and things like that. So it's pretty cool. But, sorry, I'm gonna just have an Asian moment here. But they did not fit. And I was really annoyed because I was like, okay, come on, they've got to have at least one Asian on that development team. Really? Did they not even try them on? So, okay, total tangent. Any other words that come to mind? Maybe even a word. Confidence. And I want you to be honest. I mean, if the image of a woman in tech is just a little bit, you have some cognitive dissonance, that's cool. I mean,
Like I thought to myself, whoa, is she like a CEO or is she just the secretary that they put on in the picture? Like it's both at the same time, I'm not sure what she is.
okay, is she the secretary, the model, or is she the CEO? Does it matter? It shouldn't matter. Interesting. Any other thoughts?
Kind of along those lines, I really thought she must be in some sort of executive position because normal developers don't dress like that.
Okay. Good point. Okay. So he said she must be an executive because normal developers do not dress like that. I will say that your comment in the back is actually, it's interesting because when I was at the law firm, I was doing IP. I was one of the very few women there, and we were doing a photo shoot for our website. And the managing partner said, I do not want fake people there. I want real people that are in this law firm. We couldn't find enough women, so we had to grab the receptionist and put her into some shots, right? It's a very, practical, as a practical matter, observation. How many of you believe this is a real technologist? You say no, you shake your head no. She's like, I don't know. She's not nerdy enough. Okay. Okay, so it actually is a really good shot. It's a really, really professional looking shot, you're right. Okay, so this person actually is a real technologist, by the way. Let's kind of go through, she's a very good friend of mine, so what's the reality of this picture? Okay, so her name is Sydney Tetro. She co-founded Women Tech Council with me over 7 years ago. And we'll just go through a few interesting facts about Sydney. She's mother of 3. She has a computer science degree from BYU. She has an MBA degree from BYU. She worked at Novell. She worked at Next Page, which it was startup, but now it's Proofpoint, was acquired by Proofpoint down in Draper. She co-founded Women Tech Council with me. Then she went to be the COO of Family Link. She now works for Disney, kind of a dream job with Disney Imagineering. So all the 3D cool printing stuff that you've seen, she's the one that's been launching that or consulting with their groups to launch that. She also works with a VC company called Mercado Ventures and runs Grow America and founded her own company, 3D Plus Me. So what are some thoughts now that you know who she is? Just curious, and feel free to just, again, if there's some cognitive dissonance or something that jumps to your mind, feel free to say something. Back here. Okay, so he still feels like she's dressing up for the shot. Interesting. Okay. Any other thoughts? Yeah, so she is very, very businesslike, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you're right. She's not the person that's going to be sitting behind the computer coding all day long. That's right. Any other thoughts? Let me ask you this. When I put mother of 3, did anything go through your mind? And if it didn't, that's totally fine too. I mean, I'm just curious.
The only thing that went through my mind is that you wouldn't normally see like father of 3. Like if it was a man saying that you were introducing a man and saying, these are all this man's company, you wouldn't necessarily point out. But he has 3 kids at home.
Okay, so you have 2 kids. Okay, good. So he said you wouldn't normally see somebody when they're putting together or showing their professional resume, putting father of 3 and a dog at the top of his resume, right?
Maybe you would. I mean, I guess
Maybe you would?
on my Twitter account, I say that I'm a father.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
I thought, wow, how is she like doing all of this with having 3 children? That was
Yeah.
kind of the first-
How does she do it all,
Yeah.
right? Which is a challenge, I think, for professional women, right? Because not only do they do that, but then they feel like, there's all these other expectations in order to be able to move up, right? So it can, just talking from my perspective and my own experience, it does become somewhat of a burden to try to be all that, right? Any other thoughts? Okay, so, and the thing is you might not think that there's anything weird or unusual, and that's totally cool, right? In my ideal world, it wouldn't even matter. It would just be like the same as any other tech person. But I don't think we're 100% there yet, and I only, show that to say that women can be extremely, extremely successful. There are definitely opportunities. And so let's talk about what the reality of women is. So this is from a study that UVU is doing around women in education. And for some of you that might not know, Utah actually has the highest percentage of women entering college but not graduating college. It has the lowest percentage of women graduating from college. So there's some weird disconnect going on. And but these are some of the statistics. And when I talk to educators, I try to help remind them, look, there's a 60% chance that your women or your teenage girls that you're teaching, that they're gonna work. It's just a reality. So if they're having conversations about what are you gonna do after college, or after high school, excuse me, are we preparing them for this reality? And I know it's really hard for a teenager to think, gosh, I got a plan for, what's my 5-year plan, what's my 10-year plan? But I think, as adults, when we message and when we talk to girls about their opportunities, I think there's something that we can message differently around the realities of preparing for the future. In my world, if you have a 60% chance of working, what I tell girls is I say, why don't you do something that you love then? Like, why do something that is just lower level and will barely pay you enough to pay for daycare, or maybe not be fun or interesting? So I try to remind them to find something that they're passionate about, because the chances are more likely than not that they will end up working. Now, will that happen? Will they be working full time their entire life? Probably not, right? I mean, their career pathway will probably go like this, which sort of leads me to why technology is such an amazing opportunity for women, because it allows them to navigate this amazing career path. You can go corporate, or you can do something more freelance, and you have all of these options that are available to you. So there have obviously been a lot of studies that have been done about deterrence in the industry. And, for example, Women Tech Council is trying to increase the number of female role models to make them more visible so that they're not as hard to find. And we're very lucky to have amazing talent in Utah that's really easy to be able to surface that type of talent. But we still have to overcome things like stereotypes or the geek technology culture. I don't know, but my husband's a developer. He's been doing it for 12 years, and he's kind of a geek, but not really, and I think that's probably most of your experience, that you're not really as geeky as you're made out to be.
Can you talk to me on this geek technology culture? Are we hindering anything by being the way we are around things? Does that make sense?
Well, okay, so let's think about let's think about a 16-year-old girl, and she's got kind of a decision to make. Do I want to go into tech? I think unless we help her see a different side of tech, it's really hard for her to put herself, because chances are she's probably more social. She's probably more, wants to see something that's more relevant to her in her real life. And I'm guessing that the stories that she's being told, the stories we say and tell in our culture, are probably not the stories of, there was this really cool girl named Marissa Myers, and she went to work with Google. And if you've ever seen the Internship movie with Owen Wilson and, what's his name, Vince Vaughn, I came out of that movie going like, I'm almost 40, but I kind of want to do an internship at Google now, right? So Marissa went to work for this really cool company called Google, and then, she just worked her way up, and she got this amazing opportunity to be CEO at Yahoo and rehabilitate this tech company. Chances are she's not being told that story. She's probably being told another story of, well, why would you want to do that? Like, that doesn't sound like fun. Like, really? And I've actually got a list of things. I know there's a computer science teacher in Kenya School District named Cody Henriksen, and he does a girls' camp every year to try to get more girls to do computer science. But he surveyed his students, and we put together a list of things that students, both the boys and the girls, because let's face it, there's a shortage when it comes to both boys and girls. And we'll go through that list. And then you can maybe see what they're being told at that age, right? Factors to attract more women, obviously equal pay. I read somewhere that they're still getting 40 cents on the dollar, even in tech, right? Which shocks me that if you have talent, that talent should be paid equal. Yes?
So something I always wonder when I see those equal pay stats is I think so many women in their career paths will take time to be a mother, right? And so do you think those take into account that, maybe you're gone for a certain period and those women are gone, so they might not advance as quickly as other men did that never took a break from working? Like, do you think that's part of it, or?
My understanding is that the studies are based on equal skill.
Oh, so they say skills, social security.
Yeah,
The dollar amount.
right, for doing the exact same job.
Okay.
And so, but I do understand. I mean, I think if you are choosing to step back a little bit and focus and prioritize, then I don't think there should be an expectation. What was really nice when I was actually at the law firm is that it was very stepped. So I was always making the same as the men next to me, but then I went into industry and I found I have to negotiate. And so whenever you have this negotiating thing, I believe women are at a disadvantage because they're not naturally taught from a young age how to negotiate. There's been a lot of studies. HP did a study that, for example, in promotions, when there's a job opening, women will go down the list and say, oh, I don't have 100% of those, so I'm not going to apply. And men will say, oh, I got 60%, okay, I'm totally going to do it. So there's kind of this disparity in terms of the way women will promote themselves, go after opportunities, view themselves as capable and competent. Another study I heard said that women are actually 2 to 3 times more qualified for a job when they actually apply for it, right? They're almost overqualified. So perhaps they're not taking a job that really will leverage their skill, and thus they're being paid less for even having more skill, right? So there's all of those dynamics that are kind of coming into play with the equal pay issue. Women role models, we already talked that, perceptions around boys being better than math, and again, that's where I have a hard time with education trying to put computer science in the science and math category. I'm having conversations with education leaders about that because I think that's perhaps maybe not the right messaging. Online work impact is oh, we have a comment back here?
What is the right messaging? Is it software engineering? Is it engineering school?
Well, okay, if you want me to have a soapbox moment, I'll tell you my messaging. Okay, so you'll hear 2 interesting frustrations. One is that software is too much of a vocational, skills-based industry, right? So right now in the education industry, or in education, software is under the career in tech, the vocational arts with cosmetology, culinary, crafts. You get what I'm saying, right? And then you've got the other camp that says it should be with STEM. It should be science, technology, engineering, math. It should be seen as quote unquote credible as an engineering degree. And I don't think either is wrong, because I think from my perspective, programming has kind of this interesting range of skills-based plus theory-based, right? So what's needed in the industry, that's kind of where I base my thoughts on it, is what is needed in the industry. Right now, what's needed in the industry is people who have the skills. And I don't think you have to go to a university to get those skills. There's so many pathways, so many ways to do it. You can come to Cocoa Slopes and learn how to develop iOS. It's the skills that is needed, so I don't completely disagree with the vocational. However, I do think that STEM has made it more mainstream, right? So when you go through your K-12 experience, you get exposed to science, you get exposed to math. I mean, math is a requirement. You have to have math, and you have to have a certain amount of sciences, right? Computer science is not viewed that way. So when I talk to educators, or when I talk to industry leaders or even businesses, what I think is that there's a problem with technology literacy. And so in education, you hear a lot about reading literacy and math literacy, but you don't hear about technology literacy. And if you do hear about technology literacy, it's usually how to use apps, how to use Word, how to cut and paste, how to use Excel, these things that don't really expose kids to code. And so I think what's happened is that there's not enough exposure to the idea of coding. It's kind of this foreign thing that when they see code, you guys see it in the conference here, when they throw code up, I mean, it just is so foreign to people. And what I'd love to see is for that to be much more available, so that when kids see it, it's not frightening to them, and they say, oh, I know what that is. I totally get code. I can do HTML. I can do JavaScript. I can go on Khan Academy and learn how to code. When I asked 200 13-year-old girls in Canyon School District, I said, does anybody know what coding is? And a girl raised her hand and they said, oh yeah, that's that medical thing that they do, and where they go and they type stuff that doctors say, right? They have no idea what coding is. And in 2013, coding to most of these kids should mean technology, but none of them are connecting it technology. So when I talk to people about this problem, I really think it's a technology literacy problem, not only in schools, but also for adults, right? I think just not adults are comfortable with technology, and so therefore they just have a hard time kind of making that next step into actually being a coder. So that's my soapbox moment. That's how I message it. And the reason why I like technology literacy is because it no longer becomes it no longer becomes a math or science issue, right? It's learning a language. And we've all been through that. We've all learned English. We've all learned maybe other different languages. When I went from engineering to law, I had to learn the language of law, and it was really, really painful. But I did it, right? And I think that's what needs to happen, is there needs to be a lot more familiarity with what is the language of coding, so that then people can take that next step and really learn these languages at a deep level. Any thoughts on, you can push back if you want. I don't have thick skin. I do have thick skin. I'm not sensitive. Yes?
If it's okay, I just want to backtrack a second.
Sure.
The slide you were showing before, and we were talking a little bit about equal pay.
Mhm.
So my understanding is that this is, and I don't know the statistics on outside the tech industry, but is this pretty typical as far as women are paid less in general, or is it more of a problem in the tech industry?
No, it's a general problem across the board. I think one of my previous slides said that women are still just on average paid 70 cents on the dollar, right?
So we sort of have two separate problems. One is that women are underpaid, and then the other problem is that women are also discouraged from entering tech, right?
Yes. I mean, yeah, of different problems. In addition, when they go into tech, which has traditionally been a male-dominated industry, do they feel welcome? Do they feel like this is a place where I belong? Which is, the TechCrunch thing that I was showing you, sometimes some of the frat things that can happen become an exclusionary experience for women, and then they leave. So, we'll talk a little bit more, but, we can be thinking about ways to make it much more inclusive, because the culture, there needs to be a little bit of a culture shift, as well as the way that we message tech. So this graph is the number of computer science tests that are taken nationally every year, which is really great. It's increasing. We're on an upward climb. But look at the number. It's 26,000 last year that took computer science in the nation, 26,000 students. Is that going to fill all the jobs? It's kind of frightening, right? So what's even more frightening is that in Utah, only 61 students took the computer science AP exam, which is about, I think it's 0.2% of the total number of AP exams that were taken in Utah. So there was 35,000 AP exams taken in Utah and only 61 in CS.
When did the computer science AP test start? I didn't even know it was
You didn't, yeah, you didn't know it. Well, and when I say that to kids that are like, yeah, I'm going to go to BYU or the U to computer science, I'm like, well, oh, are you taking the AP computer science test? Oh, they have one. I don't know the exact date, but obviously this data goes back to 1988, so I don't know the exact date that they started doing the test.
So this is all of the AP tests.
Yes, this is all AP computer science right here. Yeah. And you're right, there's not enough computer science teachers, unfortunately, and that is part of the problem. That is a big, significant problem. And we know that there's some economic realities there, because if you are a great programmer and you love teaching, but somebody's going to pay you, 4 to 5 times as much to develop, it's a hard decision to say, I'm going to dedicate my life to teaching students.
So I know that the Boy Scouts of America just barely added a programming merit badge.
That's awesome.
Do you know if there's anything with the Girl Scouts?
Yes, I heard they have a coding badge as well, which is awesome. Yes, so there are a lot of these programs that are popping up. Girls Can Code, She++. There's a lot of great projects that are happening to get more girls interested in programming. But I think the challenge is we're not scaling it, right? That's my biggest concern. Yes?
So what do you feel of the initiative of code.org to get programming in schools?
I love it. So Code.org is an organization that's really trying to make it a graduation requirement in every state to have some amount of coding. Again, if you go back to my technology literacy platform, if you will, it really does go hand in hand as a literacy aspect of what students are exiting their K-12 education with, what tools they have in their toolkit upon graduation. Because here's why I think that's important. Just the economies of scale. We have a pipeline problem, and if there's overexposure in coding, that's a good problem to have, right? Because you know that at least some of those kids, more kids than are currently going into programming, will go into programming. So it's not a bad thing for all these kids to be exposed to programming. But the other thing that I tell kids is any industry that you go into these days, every industry will touch technology. Healthcare, in just a few years, 20% of the jobs will have a technology focus, right? Education, I just came out of education. Technology is hitting education in this major, major way, which is creating huge opportunities. I mean, bowling, right? Bowling alleys are run off technology. I mean, it's just fashion. If girls say, I really love fashion, the fashion industry, sewing and all of that stuff is done with digital sewing machines now, right? So every industry is being touched or influenced by technology in some way to be able to scale and make them more productive. And it's also disrupting industries, right? I mean, journalism. I mean, you're just seeing these really massive impacts. Yes?
So you mentioned a little bit earlier the problem with not having enough computer science teachers at the high school or whatever level, and because of obviously if you are capable of programming, you probably want to get paid really well.
Yeah.
But so I've discussed with several people on different occasions, I think it would be really a blast to teach kids programming, even for free. But I've had other people express the exact same sentiment, but kind of their response was it's really difficult at schools. There's a lot of red tape to cut through. Are there what sort of initiatives are available?
So he said, what are the opportunities for me who have a passion in giving back and being able to teach kids to code, maybe just one class or something, but it seems to be too hard, and he knows of other people. So imagine my frustration when I found out that there's actually a way for qualified programmers to go in and teach one class a year, so let's say a 7:30 class, and they don't have to go through the normal certification process. Imagine my frustration. They just have to get certain approvals. And I thought, well, why don't more people know about this? Because we could really have technology companies investing back into education, right? Sending their great engineers and saying, gosh, would you be willing to teach one class a year for 1 hour. And that could be your pro bono for the year, right? Your way to give back and invest.
So in response to this, I've actually been coaching a robotics team for several years now.
Oh, awesome. The Lego robotics, right?
No, this
Oh,
is
first robotics. That's right.
And in Utah, there's 20, maybe more teams, and they're scattered all throughout the area, in Salt Lake and Provo. So there's lots of opportunities to be able to teach them, and it's great fun.
And they get that exposure to coding in that, right? Because there's a software component, right? That's embedded into the robotics unit, right?
They get exposure to the whole technology stack. They see mechanics, they see physics, they see programming, they see public relations, they see business management, they
Yep.
see everything.
Collaboration, teamwork. I actually really like that program. I didn't realize it was only 20 teams, so I thought it was bigger program.
In Utah,
In Utah, okay. Okay.
several hundred teams nationwide and a few other international.
So, and the first robotics, just for you, so that everybody knows, a school can sponsor a team, but it can also be done on the side as well. So what you find is a lot of people that are energetic and want to give back, they will form teams on the side because it's just, they're really passionate about helping kids be exposed to technology. So you'll find kind of a mix. And again, it's not a scaled program throughout the entire curriculum. So then you find you're missing a lot of kids getting that opportunity. So, but that is a great program. I'm a big fan of it. So the job reality, of course, as we all know, is that there's immense job opportunity. But the STEM degrees are experiencing only 2% of kids going into computer science, which interestingly, I was thinking about this earlier today, it's about the same percentage nationally that's taking the AP computer science test. If you think about all the computer science tests that are being, or the AP tests that are being taken. And we know that obviously computer science isn't the only way to get into tech, but it's simply reflective of the challenge that we have when we think about what's our talent pipeline. So this is the reality of school. So this is the slide of the teacher, the high school teacher that told me this is what his kids are hearing. And these are some of the reasons why it's challenging for students to say, hey, I want to go leave my building and go to a different building where the career and tech classes are taught and take a programming class. So you'll get things like, I don't know about the uncle lost his IT job thing. That just seems weird to me because I don't know of very many unemployed technologists. But you know, I heard all the jobs are going overseas. My uncle hates his programming job. Maybe he needs to be an accountant. I don't know. You know, I have to sacrifice. I have to leave my friends and go to a totally different building, right, for half the day to do programming. I'll be seen as geeky, and I'm not smart enough. Some of those things that we talked about, some of those bars, right, that people continue to set that make it inaccessible for kids to think, gosh, I can go into tech. So just coding in schools, we've been talking about this a lot, just some more statistics. We already know there's a big challenge, so I'm not going to dwell on this, and we've got some really great programs, but we don't have enough of them. But Kenya School District does a great coding camp for girls every year, and we'd love to see more ways for girls to get that exposure. So I'm a big believer that I want to invest back into this nation, and when you expose somebody to technology and give them a career path, you actually find that all economic tides will rise, because when you can bring somebody into technology, you have to create service industries to support that person, which increases more jobs. And then that person will influence other people around them to consider technology, such as their kids, nieces and nephews, kids in their neighborhood, right? What do you do? Well, I'm a programmer. I build really cool stuff, right? And so you have this really great circular economic benefit when we can expose more people to technology. So, you know, the big challenge here is eliminating the myths. How do we change the culture and take these myths and change them into a different story that is much more compelling? So, flexibility being a big driver, right? If you talk to girls and they say, well, I want to be able to raise a family, let's say, And I'm not saying you can't do it full-time. I've worked full-time for most of my career. But flexibility is a really cool thing. And I think the younger generation right now, lifestyle is a big piece of what they're looking for in a career, whether you're a girl or a boy. I mean, I sure love my lifestyle, and I'd love more people to have that flexibility. The creativity piece that somebody pointed out earlier, higher pay, marketable experience. So think about somebody that can be building their resume with real viable product as real work product, creating opportunities. I don't think that programming just has to be, I sit behind a desk all day and I code. I have this really amazing technical foundation, and I want to go be a product manager, or I want to go start my own company, or I've got this really great idea, and I want to be able to use my technology knowledge to be able to do something about it. I think it's like this door-opening event, and it will create these amazing opportunities for people that get that exposure. And one of the great quotes that I love to hear, and I hope I don't alienate anybody when I say this, but I heard a great quote by Whitney Johnson, and she said, "I don't want to live in a world that's built by all men." Only to say that, imagine a world where both men and women were contributing to products. What would our products look like? I mean, I don't even know, but they might look a little bit different than they do now. The diversity, obviously, in bringing different perspectives, and the natural abilities that I think women bring in communicating and creating cross-functional teams, and being able to be externally facing, perhaps to your customers in ways that certain developers can't be. I've seen some developers that are really challenged in communicating, and being able to see the big picture. A lot of people have that talent. So these are all the things I think that can be contributed when we think about changing the conversation and the way that we message. I think I only have like 1 minute left. I don't even know if I have if there are any questions or comments, but I will just leave with a parting quote, which is Warren Buffett said, "We've seen what can be accomplished when we use 50% of our human capacity. If you visualize what 100% can do, then you'll join me in an unbridled optimist about America's future." So just a thoughtful quote by one of the most successful persons in America. So I'm happy to hang around with questions. I really appreciate everybody's willingness to contribute to this conversation, because I do think that it's just going to take everybody, and that I think the more that we just continue the dialogue and maybe change the stories, the way that we talk to people about technology, I do think that over time, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll see some changes. We'll see more people choosing to go into technology and just fill this conference room with tons of really great, smart people. So thank you.